For us, it's honor to be in Haskovo, to be a part of that conference. First question, I want to ask you to tell me something more about you for our watchers. Who are you and what you work?
Okay, well, well, my name is Eamon Ansborough. I'm an astronomer, and I work in the professional field dealing with in two areas. One is robotic telescopes for astronomers, and also SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
How you start to work at SETI?
Well, I've been in the field about nearly 30 years, roughly. And I'm part of the UK, United Kingdom SETI research network. So every year, SETI-type astronomers, physicists come together, and we may have a 2-day event bringing us up to date on all the research that's been going on, and then presenting our materials.
Let's explain to the people what is exactly SETI, what SETI do, for the people who don't know.
Okay, SETI is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. The word, or those letters were coined back in 1961 by Frank Drake and 2 other astronomers. And so since then, there's been a wide range of research in this area right up to now.
How SETI work? How it function? What is the function of SETI?
Yeah, well, in SETI in general, there's 3 different areas. One is the most popular one is radio. We call it radio SETI. The other is optical, and the other is infrared. So you could say radio SETI takes up about 95% of SETI.
Is SETI have some kind of relationship with the military or government?
No, there's no connection at all. It used to be government funded, particularly in the United States and also in Russia. But since I think 1992 in the United States, it's been privately funded. However, in the last 3 years, there has been a significant increase in private funding in using the biggest radio telescopes or dishes in the world. You know, at least about 20% of telescope observing time is taken in the US, in Europe, in China, and Australia.
What makes you so interesting in UFO, extraterrestrial life and space? Why you are so interested in that themes?
Yeah, I accidentally got interested in this back in 1990. It was another astronomer. He was director of a planetarium, and he was getting reports of lights in the sky over about 3 years. And he asked me, actually, would I be interested in looking into this? So I did. So that's how I started looking at investigating lights in the sky.
Have you personally seen something special in the sky?
Not really, no. It's been purely scientific, purely listening to others, you know, the public, investigating cases. Roughly I've done about 150 cases altogether back in the 1990s. I did have some preconceptions in the early days. Around 1990 I thought, well, maybe it's something to do with a new form of plasma we haven't discovered before in the atmosphere. But it turned out that there was something even more interesting about it, which I couldn't understand.
Today you said something very interesting about the signal that you find out at 2016. Would you tell us more about that contact that you've made?
Okay, well, we'd actually developed the machine for this. We call it a machine, okay, because it was very new at the time. And it was only some weeks after, to complete astonishment and surprise, that we actually got this contact. I had speculated that it could have taken 4 or 5 years. You know, if we were very lucky, we might get contact, but it happened in a few weeks. And so it was a very precarious position to be in within our team. So we decided to be rather hesitant in divulging this information until now, because the instrumentation that we were using was so premature. It would be like something like if you were back in the 19th century with a radio, we'll say. There'd be so much noise, so many problems. That was our situation there back 2 years ago. So I decided that the best thing actually is to improve the machine, you know, to create another machine to improve the signal to noise ratio. In other words, to get a clearer signal coming through.
How was that what is that signal? Because most of the people, they think that the contact would be some kind of noise or some images. What is that signal that you find out?
Yeah, well, like in radio, you have noise. So what they used to do back in the old days, they'd have filters, a series of filters to reduce the noise, to denoise it, okay? So you end up with a clearer signal, just like we have nowadays. It's all clear signals, you know, everybody can hear them, it's crystal clear. In this case, it's very, very similar. So we have a considerable amount of noise. We've introduced specifically designed filters, and in that we hope to be clearer in the signal itself. But up to now, it's still a problem. So we've only got tentative amount of information coming through.
But you are sure that this is not just a natural noise from space, or this is signal who is from alien, who come from different civilization? What makes you so sure? Okay,
well, the reason being, and this is what was the astonishing part about this, that we think that, well, I'm convinced now that they had been monitoring the Earth for some time, and they had approached 2 governments. Now, how do we know this? Because they have been studying, believe it or not, all the languages on the Earth. So it obviously has taken a long time to do, I would imagine. And in that, they've been able to, using some sort of sophisticated language conversion, to interact with us. It's an unusual interaction in the sense that as I speak to you, it's okay, it's from one human to the other, but you know, for example, if you're speaking like English as we are speaking now, we can reciprocate reasonably well, okay? Now, with the situation we have, the language does come over that we can understand, but it's in strings, it's in spurts. It's not cohesive as such. So by understanding the pattern that's there, we're able to gradually fill in the gaps as we go along. So from that, we've been in a position to understand what they're communicating now. And likewise, as I speak to you, we're doing the same thing. We're communicating using this side, you know, using our voice through our system, and they're able to understand through their interpretation as well on the other side. So It's been a slow process, it's been complex, but the important part of it all is that we have made contact, all right. It's definitely nothing that I've come across before, or some of my colleagues have never come across this before. It's not normal type of way of communicating. It's not artificial, or should I say, yes, it is artificial, but we're convinced that we are dealing with some sort of biological entities which I think would be similar to ourselves, okay? And indeed, they are a lot more advanced than we are. We're convinced about that. As to how far advanced, I don't know, but I would say some thousands of years ahead of us, okay? That's very approximate. There's a lot of guesswork in this. With something like that's just happened, it's, let's put it this way, we don't have all the experts in the world on this because it's been kept, very quiet. And also it's private as well, because we wouldn't have got funded for the technologies that we've been developing because we're breaking the laws of physics, that's one, all right? So some of us we have some really good persons involved in this, and although they work in the field in the conventional way, they also can think outside the box. So you're really breaking the laws here, like Einsteinian physics. We're breaking the laws in the Einsteinian physics area. We're literally into the quantum mechanics area, which means you're into consciousness. And it's sort of accepted now in the physics field. Physics itself is sort of in a state of crisis, because as you get to a point where you're entering quantum mechanics, and there's no experts in quantum mechanics in the world. If some scientist says he's an expert in quantum mechanics, it's not true. No one knows about quantum mechanics.
Have you managed to read this message or this signal, what it means, or right now you work on?
How do we translate the signal?
Yeah.
Well, literally, once we've denoised the signal, we get a spurt of data, which is actually the words coming through. So we piece the words coming through, making up the sentence so that it's not out of context, so to speak. It's within context, or we try to sort of make sure we've got the context of it. And that provides then the understanding of who we're dealing with here, not where they're coming from, because we don't know, because of the nature of the machine that we're using. We have no way of knowing the location. So that's where we are at the present time, and we're now actually, I think I mentioned earlier on the presentation that we are building 3 other machines.
How many people work on that?
Okay, we have about 4 people altogether, engineers, physicists. We have 1 quantum mechanics guy. He's quite a brilliant guy in the field. We have 1 radio engineer. We have an electronic engineer involved. We actually have others there, but they wouldn't have the skills regarding the type of instrumentation we're involved with. But yes, we do have these other people. We have an anthropologist, for example. We have an archaeologist. We have two linguists. And in fact, we have an orchestra conductor as well. So it's very diverse, and I felt it was really important to have such a range of different skills. They don't necessarily have to be in the technical area, because people think in different ways when you're expert in those skills. For example, an orchestra conductor would have a mathematical type of way of thinking about music, where an engineer wouldn't be into music in any way, but would understand the technologies or the technical side of, say, circuitry involved. So it's extremely diverse, the types of people involved in this.
You told us you can spot the place it came, that message.
Not the place, no. We don't know the place. All we know is we're speculating based on statistics about, if you remember this morning, I was presenting material to do with the distances apart of ETCs, extraterrestrial civilizations, based on the volume of the galaxy and the most likelihood of how many civilizations should be out there. So that's how we worked out the distances. So even on the most pessimistic figures, it's indicating, say, about 500 light years apart for each civilization. So trying to answer your question to do with the location, it's a wild guess because we don't have any data. We have to go on supported evidence for this. People can speculate on this, but let's put it this way. My guess is it's definitely within the galaxy. Let's put it that way.
But my question is it possible it came from us? Maybe noise from future or noise from past, something like that?
That is, yes, that's a very good question. In fact, we've actually looked into that. And that has been of concern for us in the early days. Is it us creating this? Because it's quite possible. It has happened to, I think it was a signal back in 1926. Philips and Eindhoven was dealing with, they discovered these delay in signals. And the interesting thing was that signal came back much delayed, but it was the same signal. So I have thought about those things. I don't have the answer to this yet because it's still in its infancy, but it's a really good question you have there because I've seriously looked at that one. It's like, is it us creating this? It could well be. However, I think in order to prove that it's not that, we'll say, it's like an experiment, we're creating 3 machines, 3 diverse locations geographically, and if we're getting the same signal coming through on the same frequencies, I don't think it's us, that it's definitely ETC out there. But your question is actually a very interesting question, and we've taken that one quite seriously because it's quite possible, because we're only dealing with one machine. Is it us affecting this? Are we creating this? Is this a future now? Like the future has become present? Is this us listening to ourselves? In other words, are we creating it? Because we do create our realities. So, are we creating this? It's quite possible. And in order to, as I explained to you, to test this out, we really have to build more machines, which we're doing, different locations. If we're getting the same signal with such diverse locations, then we could say that, yes, we are dealing with an ETC that is for real. At this moment in time, I don't know the answer to this.
Hope in future you're going to discard that.
Yeah, so...
You said that the first contact was at 2016. Is there other kind of signal that come after that? The same contact during the years, or you just take it only once?
We've got a string of data, we'll call it, over a period of a few months. Okay, but it's only short spurts of data. And we sort of have to be there when this happens. We don't know when it's going to come through, but then it does come through. And because, we'll say, they know that we're working on this, we do get support, like help or support to get on to the next step. And all the indications is that we're meant to be improving the machine. So that's what we're doing. And it's like going back to your question, is this the future present? It could well be. I don't have the answer to this. I felt actually announcing this for the very first time. I was being quite hesitant about this because it's such a new area, and scientists would be, wow, they'll have all sorts of ideas that this is just so way out that it can't be believed. We do have all the data for this. In time, we will, as we progress in this, we will have published papers in the field, hopefully, if they're accepted. We do have some pre-published papers already. In fact, I've been asked already by 2 Russian scientists, which I will be sending, the foundation behind this. And eventually, we will have actually the technology. How are we doing this? Somebody else asked me that question as well. Yeah, that'll be all there as well. So we're not holding anything back. We do want to provide this to everybody.
Most people are very scared from first contact, maybe because they see New York movies, American movies for bad aliens. What are you going to tell to these people who will watch us now and say, oh my God, first contact, what are we going to do? There will be war between worlds.
Okay, well, we better put this in perspective, okay? I can only go on what I know, what we've received, deciphering all this information. All my other colleagues who work with me, they're absolutely positive about it. It's a serious development that's occurred. It's not like radio. You don't have that luxury of a signal that's come in and you can spend the next 3 months in Hoskova to work out a message. We have to do it in real time. It's and you have to know how to do it. You have to discover yourself actually when you're doing this. If you have hidden agendas in your mind, I don't think this works. I'm convinced about that. I don't know if that answers you. Oh yeah, I think you brought up about Hollywood movies and stuff like that. Again, a lot of this is conditioning. It's conditioning people to think that, oh, it's got to be negative. And I think in the UFO area, it's showing that it's really positive what's going on. But unfortunately, it's just the way society has developed that there's very much this fear-mongering going on. And really, personally, I don't see any fear in it at all. I actually enjoy it, what I'm doing. Because if there was a fear aspect to it, I think I'd know. I would be afraid, But when the contact happened first time, I couldn't sleep for 4 nights. It was like an you're so astonished it's happened. And I think the guys, wherever they are, they were astonished as well. So you have 2 astonished entities, all right? I think they're biological as well, my guess is, okay. I think it's all down to preparation of oneself. It's to do with, as you brought up, about fear. Fear only comes about when you've disempowered yourself in society. It's all part of conditioning. If you're gradually, as a human being, empowering yourself, fear doesn't come into it. You're a strong, full human being because we are powerful human beings, if we only knew it. It's unfortunate that society, through control systems, has disconnected us, from nature, we'll call it. This is really important because the foundations for this is to really empower yourself and enjoy the adventure. all right? So I hope that sort of answers your question in a different way to all the extraneous things to do with films and media and everything else and the negative stuff. Okay, that's all there. People might thrive on that, that area. What we're doing, this doesn't come into it. It seems to be quite a natural progression. And as I was saying, if you're empowered enough for this, you won't be afraid. If
we made first real contact, what will be your first question?
Well, the contact has been made in the sense that we think it is ETC we're dealing with, but it's like going back to what you asked in your first question there, that it could be us from the future. That's quite possible. I think I've explained about. Well, I think what this is about, and this is my best understanding of this, it's bringing in a new level of awareness onto the planet, which has huge ramifications, because it's not just a physical communication taking place here of something that's external to us, but I think it may happen on a subconscious level as well for human beings, for the whole population. And then gradually, from the subconscious, that goes into the conscious state, and it's either accepted or it's not. And so you end up then with a new world view. All right? We all have perceptions. Every single human being on this planet is like a little universe in itself. And it's only that we're in agreement when we see, say that wall over there. We all agree, yes, that's a wall. So that's the collective thinking, that's a wall. So what am I getting at? When you're dealing with something external like this, once we're all in agreement collectively that this is the ETC, one of the first ones in communication, that causes a consciousness shift on the planet. So it means actually that not only changes to each individual in all different ways, even if you're the most fundamentalist religious fanatic, we'll say, to somebody who's not into any of this stuff, you have so many different audiences, and one is not here to persuade anybody about this. When something new comes in like this, it's all down to integrating that new reality so that as a collective that we all agree, look, it's happened now, wow, it's all exciting. And it may mean that if everything goes well, that we would be the new members of this cosmic community, which I've always been convinced about has been out there. So it's like it hasn't been a surprise to me that this has happened. I'm delighted it has happened. That's if it's for real, that it's not us from the future, that it's the real thing, so to speak. I don't know if that answers your question. But,
Thank you very much for that interview.
okay, great.